Welcome, everybody, to the Mind, Body, and Soul TV on Conscious Evolution Media Network. I am your host, Coach Steve Toth, and I'm also the founder of Conscious Evolution Media, going on more than 12 years, more than 15,000 shows, and we are no longer counting. Also, we are on YouTube Live as well as Hangouts and at consciousevolutionmedia.com, and our shows also go to cable TV and to PBS. I'd like to give a very warm welcome to our guest this evening, Dr. Kimberly McGeorge. Where are you joining us from?
Currently, I am joining you from Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
Oh, okay, great. Welcome to the show. And Dr. Kimberly is a quantum energy healer, a frequency master, a remote viewer, and we're going to find out probably many other things. But before we find out more, if I would be able to take all your titles away, not just the ones I just mentioned, but all the ones that anybody has ever called you by, if I took them all away, what's left? Who is really Dr. Kimberly McGeorge?
Wow, I love that. That's such a great question. Really, it's someone who desires to live every moment fully present, fully authentic in what I call beyond joy as much as possible. So we always hear that we rarely reach this state of joy, but I found the more I understand, the less I understand, but the more I'm able to somehow get these rare glimpses of the beyond. And that's where I desire to live as much as possible for the rest of my life, is in that beyond state.
Oh, fantastic. So I am just called to do something right now that I have never done before.
Oh, no.
Because of you.
Oh, no. I love it.
So when I started this network, Kimberly, I asked 3 questions. And the first one was, who are you? Which you just answered. And the second one was, what do you want? And the third... or why are you here? And how are you going to get what you want? And I had to stop asking these questions because people couldn't answer them. So there was just big silences on the show. But I'm just so dialed in with you right now that I know that you can answer all 3 questions. So you already answered the first one. What's the answer to the second one?
Okay, remind me. The one thing
what do you want? Why are you here?
Ooh, what do I want? Wow. To be a vessel of this amazing energy that if we allow ourselves to open up to and avail ourselves to take wherever it will, on this grand adventure we call life on this planet. So that's what I want. And why am I here? It's still unfolding. I actually believe I'm here for many reasons. I think I'm here to be a mother to 4 very naturally psychic and gifted girls and kind of help navigate the way for them in a way that wasn't navigated for me as a child. I think I'm here to be both a teacher to myself of some really, really hard lessons, as well as a kind of a teacher to others of how to navigate through some of life's really hard lessons. And I really wish I had the painting that I sometimes have behind me. It's called Holding the Light. I really think that sums it up, really, just to hold the light.
Awesome. So the last one was, how are you going to get what you want?
I find that when we are aligned with the highest frequencies possible, and when we understand that, this whole thing of raising our vibration really isn't about raising our vibration, it's raising our vibration, it's holding that vibration, it's expanding into that vibration, then it's doing it all over again. And it's even more than that. That's kind of the simplistic, what we first teach is the baby steps. But what I'm really learning is to integrate harmony in absolutely every single area of my life. So in relationships, in my food choices, in my everything, in what I choose to do in my business, but just to come back to that pure center that our body so naturally and spirit so naturally craves, is homeostasis and harmony. And really, that centered piece is really, I find, the quickest way, which is hard to kind of get there, but when you can, everything just falls and falls and falls. And I kind of say, you just hold out your hands and it rains, you know, and it just pours over you and you're kind of caught up in it. And so, you know, the quickest way to get what you want is to me, to face your darkness and process and keep your energy field clean and clean up your environment and understand, you know, the toxic world we live in, and kind of start to navigate and tweak and flow into that space of harmony.
Fantastic. So my intuition was right on. You are the perfect person to
I love it.
to make the shift.
Right.
This has taken me 12 years to get here. So this is a big moment in the history and evolution of Conscious Evolution Media. This has taken me 12 years to be able to ask the question again, and I knew that you could answer them perfectly. So thank you so much, Dr. Kim.
Thank you for trusting me to ask those questions.
and our theme for this evening is actually how to go beyond frequency, which is, of course, a dear theme for me. It's definitely my wheelhouse. And what I love about it is that we're going to be having a dialogue about frequency, but not only that, what's funny to me is the theme is how to go beyond frequency, and most people still don't even understand what frequency is. True. But I'm willing to have that dialogue with you because I think since this is something that you do, and I know that you're very passionate about it, it's time to go there, obviously, right? So let's make it maybe a little bit more clear to the viewers. What are we talking about when we talk about frequency?
Yeah, I love that. And I love sharing this. And it's so funny because I'm so immersed, as you observed, in this world that to me, I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I live and breathe and, this stuff. So to me, it's very familiar. But I forget that there's, 7-8 billion people on the planet that haven't even heard that word other than like radio frequency, possibly. But yet that's bingo. It's it. That's exactly it. It's radio frequency. And so what we learn as we go into quantum physics is we learn that absolutely everything has a frequency, and it actually has, we can call it a radio frequency. That's not precisely right, but we won't split hairs at this moment. So where I may dial up 98.9 and it might be the country radio station, I may look at a ladybug and it might be 245.64. And so there's subtle differences within, the category, within the category of fruit. An apple is going to be different from an orange, but they're going to be in the same frequency range together, as similar things. And so this is true with emotions. This is true with diseases. This is true with thoughts. This is true with states of being. I have a great story to illustrate this. I used to be engaged to a wonderful man. We'll call him, and he called one of the machines.
Used to be.
Yes, used to. Yeah, that's a different kind of show.
That's another show.
We'll talk about the lessons in the soap opera and that's a different kind of show. That's some kind of weird twisted movie.
That's a relationship. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But, and my ex-fiance used to call I now use many different types of technology, high-tech stuff that deals with frequencies. But back in the day, I still use a machine called a Meridian Stress Assessment Machine, a biofeedback machine. And he used to call it the witchcraft machine. Well, one day he was a construction foreman. He came home and he said, "Oh, my hands are killing me," because he was doing concrete. I haven't done concrete, but I've heard a lot about it. I guess it's really, really hard on your body and on your hands, and you're bent over and you're tying stuff. And so he came home and he said, "Put me on that witchcraft machine, fix my hands." So of course, me being me, anybody knows me, I'm going to fix his hands, but I'm going to get in there and try to fix his mind and try to fix his temper and try to fix his emotions. So he thinks I'm fixing his hands, while I have him on this machine. And I'll talk about that in a second, kind of how that worked. But, and what came up was, which he didn't know and I didn't tell him, but what came up is an emotional remedy. And it said, for those who struggle with authority figures, usually their father, who usually work with them or in a position under them. And of course, what I knew was that he worked for his dad. His dad worked over him in the same construction company. And, he had all these kind of weird love-hate, father-son type of issues. So, oh my gosh, you guys, doesn't that blow your mind? Like, how can a machine see? It's not the machine, it's us. We are so wonderfully made and so sophisticated and such this highway flow of information, just like this beautiful computer. We're light beings, that we can know anything about you, not because I'm psychic, which I am, not because I can see your energy field, because I can, but I don't have to be. I could teach you how to use that same machine, and you could tell me crazy things that no one could possibly know, because everything you need to know to balance your life and bring you to harmony, all the dark, all the light, all the good, all the bad, is in your energy field. And your body is so specific. It asks for just the right things in just the right order to bring healing and hope and, emotional, psychological, mental, spiritual. I mean, it's just crazy. And I just love it.
Would you also say, Dr. Kim, that our emotions are our guidance system to what you're describing?
I do. I think your emotions, if you carefully chart them and observe them and kind of stand outside yourself, are really the key to a lot of your intuitive gifts and intuitive skills and your observations. So how do you feel when you walk into a church versus how do you feel when you walk into a graveyard versus how do you feel when you walk into a crazy party where everyone's, drunk and falling around? So if you start to pay attention to these subtle differences, it gives you information or frequencies that then you can use. And I always say, learning to discern frequencies is really better protection than any weapon you could ever have, because you can know what to avoid, you can know what to go into, you can know what to say yes to. It really goes to every single, we call it bouncing the energy. Once you learn to kind of start to discern these subtle frequencies, and you don't have to have a machine and you don't have to be psychic, which is what's really cool. Once you learn to follow that gut instinct and your intuition and go down into the center of your being, which I find is often the third chakra, which is so corrupted because as children, we're so programmed and our personal power is stripped from us. So we really need to go in and kind of tweak and learn to, I call it power standing, stand behind ourselves and believe those feelings, like you said, and trust that intuition. And the only way to do that is to start practicing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Very good. So let me, this is just so incredibly, this is like the most fascinating thing that I could ever, have a dialogue about, and I would be willing to have it 24/7, because I'm not finding anything in the world. So I got to let you in on something. What am I doing in my life right now? I've kind of taken, because I've been doing this network for 12 years, and this is obviously one way, and I'm very passionate about it, but this is only one way to let people know what consciousness is like and what it feels like and what it looks like. But I also found another way, which is it's going on almost 2 years now. Then I went back out into the world and to find out how I can implement consciousness and how I can implement what difference can I make in an unconscious, mostly unconscious world. Does that make sense? And so where I got the idea is I can't remember the title of this book, but when I was a kid, I lived in Eastern Europe. I read this book from Mark Twain about a king who was quite disturbed by all his servants because they were feeding him all these things about the country. And he was beginning to feel, his intuition was telling him that something is off and there's something wrong with my country and my people around me are not telling me the truth. So what he did is he took his crown off, he changed his clothing into a peasant, and went out into the world, into the country, to find out what's going on in his own country, so nobody would recognize him as the king. And that's where I got the idea, and that's how I went into corporate America. I am right now working within a corporation, and they don't know what I'm doing. So what I'm doing is I am being the example. I am walking the talk in terms of consciousness. I am putting out this energy. I'm broadcasting, because this is something else. I don't know if you found this. I'm sure you have. That it's not necessarily just the words that we say. the universe doesn't understand these words. I mean, the words are important, and yes, positive thinking is important, but what what the what the world understands and what the universe understands, and what our source understands is our vibration. So what we broadcast, like you were talking about frequency, and what we're putting out is what matters. So I am constantly paying attention to myself in terms of what I'm putting out. And of course, I'm putting out love, I'm putting out understanding, I'm putting out, because anytime I'm recognizing something in my daily life where I'm reacting to something or I'm having a negative emotion, I am absolutely paying attention to it. And I wanted to talk to you about that because what people do with negative emotions that I've experienced is that they point the finger away from themselves, that there is somebody out there doing it to me. And this happens more in relationships than I think anywhere else, but it happens in corporate America. People don't want to be responsible, that if we have an understanding, and I think I can have this understanding with you, that I believe that I create my own reality. Like the fact that you and I are doing this show right now is my manifestation and your manifestation. This doesn't happen by accident. It is the law of attraction at work.
I think that was beautifully said. I teach you cannot attract any less than who you are being, and you cannot attract any less than what you're ready for energetically. Well, actually you can, but you'll find it to be a little bit of a high and then a low, usually a roller coaster ride that'll kind of spin out in disaster. I love that because one of the things I teach passionately all the time is one of your greatest fears is actually facing your own resistance, which is kind of what you were saying. When things come up and we find ourselves going to that space, it can be a number of things. Yeah, sometimes it's brain chemistry. Yeah, sometimes it's what we call an angry liver or hormones, and not just in women. I'm not just giving a bye for the women and men too. So sometimes, yeah, there is a physical influence, but a lot of times it's not. A lot of times it's a spiritual resistance. It's that resistance to, oh my gosh, this is so offensive in that person. And why is it offensive? There'd be no reason for it to be offensive or for us to go into resistance if it wasn't a frequency that resided in us, i.e. an emotion or a thought pattern or a struggle or an addiction. So when and that's a basic thing that's kind of a hard thing to teach, and it's not a fun thing to teach, or it's definitely not a fun thing to live, is to kind of learn how to halt that reaction and say, wait a minute, why am I going here with this? And there is something to learn and something to change and something to observe in myself. Absolutely.
So the question that I ask when I notice that there's a negative reaction, and I can give an example. There is a guy at work that at first I did not like him, and I reminded myself that, okay, so why? The first question I ask is, why is this in my life right now? Why? And why am I noticing? And I'm just reminding myself that I am just a reflection, and he is just a reflection for me. So also I'm reminding myself that source, the energy that we are all from, doesn't have this understanding of this person. The source loves this person. I don't. So the pain that I'm experiencing right now is really a misalignment between who I really am and this other smaller version of Coach Steve, right? So that's where I've taken it. Give me some feedback about that.
No, I think that's great. I think you're a little hard on yourself though, because as I observe your energy, and believe me, I could turn this into like an hour-long personal reading, and I won't. But you actually have a really nicely aligned, open heart chakra. So even the people, you're actually a lot kinder than I am. Even the people you approach with disdain or that rub you the wrong way or that don't mesh with you, You actually do approach them with love. I think for you, it's actually more of a mental resistance. You're being hard on yourself because your being is really saturated in 528, which is what we call, one of the love frequencies on this planet. So I think you're being hard on yourself, to be honest with you. And when
Okay.
we do vibrate, as you talk about, or we radiate out of your being, I talk about, practicing the power of our presence. And when I walk in with my little girls to a concert hall, and you know how everybody's facing the stage, and believe me, it's probably not me, it's probably them. You guys know kids, or, they're a lot purer and a lot less jaded than we are. But people turn around, and my girls are always like, why are people turning around and looking at us? And that's because as your frequency, rises and you become this light, people don't just see it, when they're face to face in your eyes. And, that's
Oh,
a
they
really
feel
great
it.
thing
Oh,
I
they feel it.
love to
Yeah.
teach about too, Steve, is if you guys ever doubt when you meet a man or a woman to do business with, or walk you home, or stop by the side of the road to help you change a tire, or to date, or to be a friend to, make sure you take the time to stop and look that person gently dead in the eyes and read that information that you're receiving, because the light of the body is in the eye, and that's a lot where you can pick up people that really are operating on a lower frequency, or that have a density, or what we call darkness in them. So I think that's really important. But the power, we really, Steve, really, we neglect the power of our presence. We don't practice it. Number one, a lot of us don't have a powerful presence, but if we do, we don't realize that my kids are always like, why do you touch people in the grocery store? Well, I'm a healer, so of course I have the power to heal, by touching, but it's more than that. It's that power of presence. We all craved. Come on, who can be touched? And I'm not talking sexually, but sexually too. Who can be touched enough? Who can be held enough? Who can be loved on enough?
Oh, I
We
love to
are
be. I love to be hugged. I love to be
starving,
kissed.
aren't we? As a world, as a
when I
planet,
when I think about relationships, the only thing I don't think about sex in terms of relationships. I think about the greatest thing for me about relationships is spooning, and it could be a female and it could be a male. I don't care. But I think when we spoon with somebody, we're so close and we're so intimate, and we can. It's not about not having clothes on or having clothes on, whatever, but just being so close and actually feeling someone as close as you could possibly. There's just something so gentle and something so loving about spooning. I just had to say that. I don't know why, but I just did.
I think a lot of women especially would agree with you, and quite a lot of men as well. And even a smile. I mean, I've had, days where someone said, man, I love your shoes, and that turned around my day. So I just think we're so inward, and I don't mean inward in like a conscious meditative way. We're just so programmed to go through the routine of living that we don't realize we're not here. I don't believe to go through the routine of living. I believe not only do I have a powerful purpose, but every single
Everybody.
7 to 8 billion people on this planet are brought here to this planet at this time, in their country, in their neighborhood, in their college, in their family, in that marriage, whatever, for a profound purpose to affect everyone around them, everyone they come in contact, from the time they're born on this planet to the time they pass from this planet, in the most positive ways, bringing their light, their talents, their abilities. Is everyone destined to be a star? Absolutely not. Is everyone supposed to be on the radio or TV? No. But you can have a profound, quiet influence as a mother, or as a father, or as a cousin, or a brother, or a sister, or a volunteer, or in many as a teacher. I mean, whatever we need, conscious, bright lawyers and doctors and bankers. It's not just this kind of thing. I mean, we need to saturate this world with love and light.
I completely agree. So, in addition to that, I'd like to just talk for a minute about contrast, because the world is full of contrast, and my own understanding now, even with the people, because I kind of lived like a monk for about 10 years. I locked myself up to create this network, and I just came out like a couple of years ago into the world, and and what I'm finding interesting that even all the people that are not conscious, and I'm just going to refer back to what you just said, that people are like robots. They just going through the same minutia every day with minor variances, right? Even those people, I'm feeling that because the way life occurs is it occurs in between of what we want and what we don't want. You know what I mean? Like constantly, we can't stop this thing that's going on with us. It's a constant occurrence of I want this and I don't want that, and so it's almost like being in a pinball machine, and you being banged up against what you want, what you don't want, and so out of all the stuff that we don't want, incredible, great, positive things are coming out of that. So people are making contributions even that they are not conscious. And the only difference that I see between them and me right now, because I used to be them, the only difference I see right now is I am more intentional than they are. Do you know what I mean? It's not like I know when I'm experiencing, like I disconnected my television because commercial television offers nothing for me. I have no use for it because it's full of negativity, and I'm not willing to live there. I'm not going there. So if I'm experiencing something negative, then I'm immediately recognizing that this is not something that I want. Not that I don't want it, but what is it the opposite of it that I want? And so I give you an example. So I was meeting with somebody downtown Denver a few weeks ago, and it was really cold out, and it was around 6 o'clock in the evening, and I was going over a bridge towards downtown Denver, and on the right side of the bridge, there was a homeless man in a wheelchair, completely bundled up. The only thing I could see is his eyes, and he was kind of very slowly going through the bridge, but it was probably like 17 degrees, so it was really cold. And I looked over, and the first negative emotion I had about it is, wow. That is just not cool. That is just not cool. And then I went into the opposite of that, which is I think nobody should have to do that. Nobody should have to be exposed and be all by themselves and being out in the cold. And then I had emotions like, I wanted to help him, and what could I do? And then the next thing that came to me is, wait a minute. I reminded myself that we are 100% responsible for our reality and what we create. And then I reminded myself, wait a minute. This guy knows better than I do. This is his life, not my life. I don't need to be, if I don't want to be enrolled in that, I don't need to be. And within 30 seconds, I moved on.
I love that. And we call that when you come up, I've been places, maybe not that place, but I've been similar places to that. I've been, places where my choices led me to dark places, whether it wasn't, any money or in an abusive romantic relationship or, many, many things, betrayed by business partners, but it was always my choice and my decision. And I love that you said that, because I think it's recognizing that and owning that we have this beautiful thing called free will. And it's fabulous, and it's horrifying.
And this is what he wants.
Right. Right. But when we choose, the beautiful thing about free will, and you kind of just said it, and I'm just going to say it a little bit different way, is we get to choose again. Mm-hmm. So could he choose again?
Oh, sure. Oh, sure.
And, maybe there are irreversible, things like paralysis, or, I'm not sure, what his whole situation was, but did he have to be in that whole situation? Probably not. If you or I or someone else, accustomed to counseling and analyzing that kind of thing, we could probably point out many spots where in that breath, in that moment, he could have chosen differently, which sets off that, it's like the choose your own adventure books. I don't know if you're familiar with those as a kid, where you get to choose. You're like, okay, well, I'm going to go through this door. And then that ends you up here. And we can always choose a different door at any time. And you know what? We're so programmed in this reality, it drives me nuts. We get married and we're in this horrible relationship. And we're like, oh gosh, I'm married. And I'm not saying this frivolously. It's not that I don't believe in the sanctity of marriage. I do. But I'm sorry, sometimes you guys got to choose again. You got to choose to end it. You got to choose to step out. You got to choose to care more about you or your kids or whatever than about this entity of marriage or this entity of a business. And so one thing we talk about with energy and frequency that is not taught and that we don't work with is what I call the energies of businesses, the energies of relationships. It's its own separate energy, and we have to relate to that energy. So when you're in a marriage, it's a husband and a wife and the marriage is almost like a third person. And so when you're ending a marriage, you're really, dealing with that third entity energy. And I know that's a little advanced for some of you, like, what the heck is she talking about? But I guess I was supposed to say that for some of you that do understand and need to hear that.
Okay. So interestingly, what I wanted to say, and I decided not to interrupt you, but there was a piece there when you were describing this, is that, and this is the way I live my life now, is what's the driving force for me in my life is I take care of myself. I'm number one. And I want to be joyful, happy, and I want to feel good as much as humanly and not humanly possible, because that's all there is. I want to experience life from that place. I don't want to put all these conditions on my life, because I've done that. I've done that, the things that I have to get married. I have to have kids. Not that I'm sorry for creating all of that. I'm not. I think it's fantastic that I did all that. But I don't have to have all these conditions. In order to be joyful and to be happy and to be satisfied, I don't. And I guess if we're talking about conditional love, unconditional love, that is unconditional. My definition of unconditional love. There are no conditions. We don't need anything to be happy, to be joyful, to feel good. You agree?
Oh, absolutely. And when you get to that place that you have arrived at, however you have arrived there, the freedom that brings. So when you choose a car, you don't choose a car because everyone else is going to look at it and envy it. You're going to choose a car that is appealing to
nobody
you.
Cares.
That fills you. I love that too. I'll say that.
Because Dr.
I
Kim,
agree.
I had a 745i 12 years ago, and nobody gave a shit.
And that's
only I did.
I love that you said that. I just had a huge conversation with my oldest daughter about that. I was trying to tell her, I was like, if people would just realize that nobody cares what house they live in, nobody cares what car they're driving, it frees up so much of your time and money trying to live for everybody else. And you begin to really, like you said, simplify your life. I mean, you can still have luxury, you can still choose amazing things, but make sure that that choice is aligned with who you are and who you want to broadcast out in the world. And, it's so funny because we're still, I don't know if you've noticed this with some of the people you've interviewed or the people you come in contact with in this world, but we're still in the mindset, even in consciousness, unfortunately, everyone's still abundance, money, that money is going to, put the balm on our hurt and wounded childhoods, and money is going to make us spiritual all of a sudden,
everything.
And money is going to make us happy.
Once we have all the money in the world, we're going to be happy and joyful forever.
That's it. Yeah. And it's just not true. It's not true. And we just do a disservice as spiritual teachers or leaders or healers or psychics when we sell that and when we encourage people to buy into that, because we're really doing a huge disservice, because we can chase money for many, as you know, for many, many, many years. And once you find it, are you 80? Are you 60? Are you dying, on your deathbed? And it's just not, money's not where it's at. Now, at the same point, it's the opposite, which I know you recognize. The opposite of everything is money sure makes life a heck of a lot easier. And
absolutely.
I'm the first one to admit that. So
might as well embrace it and, welcome as much as you can welcome into your life, because it will make everything much, much easier. And that's what I'm doing. But what's interesting though, Dr. Kim, is that people, I mean, I come across people constantly that are complaining and bitching about, I want money, I want money, I want money. But then all they talk about and where they spend their energy and time is that they don't have it. Well, if that's where you're going, it's almost like, so what you want is the abundance of money to come to you, but then you're going the opposite direction. Remember, we talked about the two ends of everything, having money and not having money. But where they're spending all their time and energy is away from that frequency, that energy, and the energy that they're putting out about money is why they can't have it, or why they're not deserving it, or whatever the reason is.
And
do you experience that?
Absolutely. And the chase of money actually drives it further, from you.
Yeah, but it's not coming. The more the more you go that way, it's not coming.
I find that when you start to realize that it's the spiritual qualities, when you live in the frequency of joy, when you live in the frequency of forgiveness and love and peace and gratitude for what you have, I think it's so, so important. I'll give you just a tiny example from my own life. We ran out of, well, we didn't run out. Our hot water heater broke for 3 or 4 days. And you know what? I could have, and I am not saying a couple years ago, I wouldn't have, complained and moaned and, I want to take a bath and I can't take a bath and I want to wash dishes and I can't wash dishes. I want to do laundry, and got all frustrated. And I started kind of to go that direction. And I kind of pulled myself back and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm just going to celebrate in gratitude that I have running water. How many people in the world would kill, and I mean it, like literally kill, to experience a cold shower, or running clean water? And so we have to be so in gratitude. If you guys cannot learn to experience the thrill of the sunlight coming in and hitting your face through a window and find just this incredible joy in the simplest things, you aren't going to find joy in driving a Porsche. You're not going to find joy going to Italy on vacation or in living in a mansion. It's not just the simple things, it's everything. But you kind of have to be able to experience and be very, very thankful for every single thing that comes across your life, including, which you brought up earlier, the chaos, because some of my biggest gifts have been hidden in chaos.
Yeah, and I definitely wanted to talk about that because there's all these people that, especially a lot of the people that are into this, I guess, the positivity, whatever you want to call it, bandwagon. As soon as they experience something negative or somebody says something negative, they completely lose it. But I just want to remind everybody is that without the negativity, there would be no positivity. So it's like we got to have an understanding that where life occurs is that every subject has two ends. And without that, there is no life. So we might as well embrace, because as people say, if anybody that's watching us right now tuned into television when all that stuff happened in Paris, I mean, that's very negative. And of course, the media makes a big deal out of it, and they have it on for weeks and weeks and weeks until they can't talk about it anymore. But guess what? What came out of that negative occurrence is just as much positivity. Just as much.
I really agree with that. I do. And I make kind of fun. I get in trouble sometimes because I'm a little irreverent because I don't care. I live for, what I'm supposed to do. But I always say love and light because, but it's a lie. Like you just pointed out, that's a lie. That's one of the biggest lies that this industry pushes. And we do such a disservice, because then we make people feel guilty. They're like, oh my gosh, so if I'm conscious and I'm spiritual, I'm supposed to be living in love and light, but I'm sick or my dad is dying or I'm losing my home, and then they feel guilty, and it really creates a really weird spin in people that, I can see in their energy fields. Who wants, if in this love and light industry, why are we creating this guilt? Because it's true what you said. It's not. Like I always say, usually tell people to turn off the news too, but sometimes I say turn on the news. Tell me how much love and light you see. And no, that's not true reality either, because I've traveled a lot across the country, and gosh, Steve, at least in the United States of America, there's still a heck of a lot of good people here. I mean, they might not be conscious, but good. You know what I mean? Good people that love their families and work hard and care about other people. So there's a lot of goodness out here. And I think we get tainted by the media and we don't think there's as much goodness as there is. But certainly there's that dichotomy. And, in my point of view, there always will be. So when we hear about people get really whack, and I'm whack, but I'm whack scientifically, you guys, some people are whack in different ways, but people talk like the eighth gateway and like heaven's descending upon us. And I'm like, you guys need to kind of come back into the body and get a grip, because look around. I mean, are we living in utopia? Any of us? No, not really.
No, I mean, not until, and I'm not even sure I'm ready to talk about that. I guess I'm not. But if we took all the bad things away, if we took away, all the problems of the world, how would life actually occur? Because it occurs actually in this magnetic field. There's a positive and a negative. We wouldn't even be here.
Right. Well, we would have figured it out, I guess.
That's how this thing is designed.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. Absolutely. Yeah. That gets into some really deep stuff that we're probably already getting deep enough. Like you said, so.
But don't you think that this whole field, and yeah, you're right. Let's not get into quantum mechanics, but in this whole field, what it's really about is that new idea that when somebody is having, I know when I'm having experiences, positive and negative, whatever they are, I'm getting new ideas. And that's really, so for example, this thing was a new idea in somebody's head. Something made somebody come up with this. And isn't that the beauty of life? It was a thought. At first, it was just in somebody's head. It was just a thought.
Yeah, the energy of creation. That's the fun thing. Not only do we have this beautiful thing called free will and we can choose again, but this magical energy of creation. And I live in creation quite a lot. Sometimes I live in creation too much and I get burnt out on my programs before they're finished because I'm too busy creating like the next 3. But, we can create and recreate. And that is like, on a microcosm, like you said, in your job, inventing things, or artistically, or in our relationships, or we can recreate ourselves. So to live in that energy of creation is really starting to get close to, living a very satisfying, very interesting life, But that requires, what does that require? It requires our energetic systems to be clear, our meridians to be flowing, our second chakra to be aligned, our root chakra to be healed from any childhood wounds and grounded. It's hard to live in the energy of creation when you have a lot of fear in your field. You cannot create out of fear. It doesn't create good things. Let's put it that way. When we create out of fear, when we make choices out of fear as well, that's, a lot. If you guys look back at, some of the pivotal choices that you consider bad choices in your life, I'd bet you $1 million. Most of those were created in some state of lack, as you pointed out earlier, or fear. And so we need to start creating from that calm center place where we've done the work and we're coming into mostly living in love, mostly reflecting an authentic self as much as possible. And that self can change, but you can still be authentic, in the moment, and openly share who you are without hiding, without shrinking back in fear, and having this beautiful, open, glowing field. I do run into it, and you're one of those people that does have that more balanced and centered field. And I can tell you've done the work, and there's other people like you as well. And it's always a joy to encounter.
There's plenty of us. Unfortunately, just in the percentage, it's probably not making as big of a difference yet as it could. But eventually it will. I think we'll get to the point where enough of us will be putting out this broadcast, this energy, that eventually it will make a huge difference. Like there be really truly awakening on this planet. So I'm curious about this theme that we have is how to go beyond frequency. It's kind of interesting. What do you mean by going beyond frequency? Let's explore that a little bit.
Really, and I work constantly in frequency with tons of people and tons of different situations and, groups and programs. But really, when I talk about living beyond frequency, it's when you've lived, I guess you've gotten so comfortable with your own intuitive abilities and your own energy field and your own authentic self, and you've done your work where you really don't even have to worry about that, where it becomes this endless flow of being. And it's hard to explain it to people because it takes a while to get there, and I'm not completely there, but I go in and out of it. But it's to where you open up your refrigerator and you don't even think through your mind, what should I eat or what should I drink? What do you do? There's this seamless flow between your energy field, your body, and the food, and it just flows, and you know exactly what you're going to reach in and get that is going to balance and energize and bring your body, your mind, your emotions to harmony. And it's that way with everything, not just food. I'm just using that as an example. Music. Do I need to, you don't think, do I need to listen to country or classical or whatever, hard rock? Some people actually do really well with hard rock, which is kind of crazy, but it's interesting. It becomes, oh, well, tonight I might resonate with country, but tomorrow maybe I need to chill to some classical or some jazz. And it just becomes, it's choice, but and I'm not even going to go into the highest self thing. I think that's a myth, and we'll talk about that another time. But it's not about the highest self. It's about your whole self. It's becoming, and really before you can start bouncing frequencies, you need to become so honest and so comfortable with who you are, with your own being, your own soul, and your own frequencies. And once you do that, that's when you can start bouncing things off. And we do have this beautiful, Steve, there had to be a reason I was born now because, gosh, I used to watch Star Trek and Doctor Who, and they, people took them into these clinics and they had these machines and they scanned people and you could tell them all these amazing things. And I'm like, that's so cool. We got that. A lot of people don't know we've got that. People don't like in certain professions that we've got that, but now we have this technology, so we don't have to guess. We don't have to guess what supplements to take. We don't have to guess, even medicine, what medicine resonates with us, or foods, or allergies, or what's wrong. We can know. And so I think it's so brilliant that we live in this age where this is available to us, and we can utilize that to more quickly harmonize and get the heck on with our lives. Like, why do we just want to struggle and take class after class and read book after book and go to seminar after seminar? And this is what I see in consciousness, just this addiction to seeking joy, to seeking wealth, to seeking consciousness. But Steve, we aren't living in it. We aren't vibrating in that state of being. And therefore, we aren't doing what we've been talking about. We aren't changing and transforming lives by our very presence, which is entirely possible when you're in the right state, as you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's like, that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about unconditional love. Like, people can't put their arms around unconditional love. Well, it's very simple to me what it is. It's love without conditions. I don't need to have a 745 I to feel good. I can generate myself feeling good without anything. I can just do it because that's who I am. I am that. I am, So we talked about, source energy and all this other stuff, but I am curious. And this is an interesting thing that I've been toying with, is that we have become so good at, like I feel that because we can see, like I can see you, you can see me. I'm translating energy, correct, through my eyes. I am translating energy through my ears, through taste, through touch. We talked all about that during the show. But this is what we became a master of. We all know how to create reality by our five senses. But what if there is a lot more out there than just these five senses? Then what?
We don't have enough time for this conversation, Mr. C.
Are you inviting yourself for another show?
Maybe I am. Maybe we've got to finish this up. Another 85 shows to get through that.
Because I'm not even that much interested anymore in this five senses business. I am more interested in what's beyond that.
And you know what that is? That's a sign as your frequency, comes up and as your being expands, whether you know because you've heard or you've seen or you felt or you just know because that's a gift and an ability. Oh my gosh. I could just blow your mind. Not yours, probably. Not your, well, probably yours, but probably your audience's more so. It's so hard
That would
for
be
me.
good. I think our minds need to be blown.
Probably. But, the interdimensional clashing, the dimensions that overlay this world and that I, and we all do, whether we know it or not, encounter is so mind-blowing, and I'm still discovering the layers upon layers. I have one daughter who sees, I always say, I don't know if you're familiar with the show Ghost Whisperer, but in Ghost Whisperer there's ghosts everywhere all the time standing around, and I only see about 40 or 50% of the time. That's not my strongest ability, but my oldest daughter sees 100% of the time, and she's like, Mom, it's really like that. Like, we would drive down the street and there's old houses, and she'd be like, do you see the woman standing there? And I'm like, no. And she does, and she can describe her in detail. And I've worked a lot in the paranormal, and I've got great stories about that too. But I used to take her with me when we cleared houses, did house clearings, because she could pick up the stuff that I couldn't. I can more hear and sense, and I can see energies, but she sees spirits a lot more than I do. So, but then there's this other realm, there's the cryptozoology interdimensional realm that we've been experimenting with the technology. As a matter of fact, I ran an ARA photo of a picture that someone sent me of a Bigfoot creature, and phenomenally mind-blowing what came up. It came up that this creature was highly intuitive and highly spiritual and highly connected, and we have people hunting this thing like a beast through the woods, but are these creatures spiritual? Are these creatures intelligent? So we are really experimenting with things like portholes and, interweaving the technology and, black science and what's going on that we don't know what's going on, and the alien beings and who are these things and all those kinds of things. When you get into frequency, Steve, like, it's no holds barred. And when you're born with abilities, it's kind of like this double whammy. So, I'm still navigating my way through all of that, because just crazy stuff happens. And even stuff like, people are like, think there's only one interdimensional thing to see, like demons, angels, ghosts, but there's other creatures that we see and we encounter them on our bodies, we encounter them in people's energy fields, we see them crawling around, much like kind of some of the Lord of the Rings stuff. And that stuff exists and people don't know it. But, those of us that walk with kind of one foot in this world and one foot in many other dimensions, we know that we know that we know. And now we have some of the technology, Steve, so other people, we can prove we're not crazy, So I'm so glad I live. Well, I'm crazy, but we can still prove that this stuff exists. So it's a lot of fun, and it blows my mind, and I could talk about so much of it forever, and I love doing so.
Well, I don't think you're crazy. I think you're very fascinating, and I think that's really the evolution of humanity. That's really what's next for us, is to discover these gifts that you were talking about. Because I know, also, I don't know if I introduced you this way at the beginning. I don't remember, but I think you're also a remote viewer. And so these are all gifts that a lot of people have and don't even know that they have them, because they're just not open. We are so restricted ourselves to our five senses, because, people say, well, if I can see it and I can touch it, then I believe it. And I say, baloney.
Well, and Steve, it's deliberate. From birth, at least in America, our third eyes are, which a lot of people don't know, that your third eye, which is located here, is exactly the same structure with cones and rods as your real eye. Whoa, did you guys hear what I said? The physicality of that place has exactly the same What does that mean? That means this is where you see interdimensionally, but it's calcified. It's not working properly. It also interrelates with the pineal and the pituitary, and we're so hormonally imbalanced. This is not an accident. Why? Because what if you could discern frequencies I've worked in this field a long time, so I can do it very, very minutely. What if you could see the unseen? What if you could start to put together? What if you couldn't be programmed like the masses? That, number one, makes you a very, very dangerous person. Guess what? It also makes you a very, very powerful person. Oh, and no, so that is deliberate.
So let me ask you the biggest question of the night, and then I'll turn it over to you. in terms of just talk a little bit about how people can access your wisdom and how they can go to your website and all these other things. But before that, this is the biggest question of the night. So a lot of people talk about this, that they want to win the lottery. So and they base it on luck. And I believe that it has nothing to do with luck. I believe that what it has to do with is our ability for our frequency to become one with the frequency of the lotto. So I don't know if you think I'm crazy, but I'm kind of proving this notion about many other things that I'm involved in right now and I've been doing, that the only way to experience different things is we have to become, I guess a standard word I could use, and this is another problem I'm having these days, is I don't have enough words in the English language to describe these experiences that I'm having lately. I just don't know how to say it. So we have to kind of become one with what it is that we want, right? And how do you do that?
It's interesting because the same thing, can be done with, like slot machines or things like that, is really to, again, kind of how it's kind of like I was talking about the relationship of a marriage, how the marriage has its own energy. Obviously, each lotto has its own energy. And so it's really
It's a
to plug
frequency.
into that and begin to build a relationship, whether you're playing a slot machine, and this is just a random tip, you guys, whatever, take it for what it's worth. But that's why I encourage people that ask me, they're like, I'm going to Vegas, do you have any, recommendations? And I say, play at the same table. Don't switch tables. Sometimes people, when they're, starting to lose money or whatever, they'll switch tables. First of all, go in and be discerning. What machine are you drawn to? Process it through your feelings, not through your mind, not through your physical eyes.
Yeah.
Just feel
It's
which
an intuitive
machine
thing.
can I build a quick relationship with? Which table, which dealer, whatever, find something that you can bond with and plug into that, because you're going to start to pick up on the subtle nuances. And can you imagine, think about the difference between someone that's super, super ecstatic versus someone that's just happy. There's the perception there of the difference. So the difference between a machine that has just hit or is about to hit, if you can feel that difference, just like the lotto and which numbers, it's the same thing. You just have to learn how to feel that. I do believe there's some checks and balances in the universe. I don't believe in that thing, a personal gain thing. I don't totally believe that. But I do believe that it's hard, not impossible, but it's hard to develop that skill. Is it possible? Yes.
Oh, it's not easy. It was easy. Everybody would be
Exactly.
doing
I
it.
do believe
It's
it is
not
possible,
easy.
and there's many ways to create wealth, and I've chosen to create wealth, different ways, but don't think I'm not tempted sometimes to put my energy toward that, because it does take energy to build that relationship, which may be what you're doing. So, kind of keep that in mind, and I also encourage people to, and this is kind of old school and I call it old energy, but if you do want to win these games, start visualizing yourself, feel yourself already there, immerse yourself. And that's a timeline thing. I read timelines. So that's a timeline.
How would you feel if you won the lottery? How would that make you feel?
You need to slide back and forth to that, to the timeline. So ahead in your timeline to winning that lotto and aligning yourself with that frequency, because again, we cannot draw to us anything we're not being, but imagination is being, dreaming is being, meditating before you go to sleep is a way of being, or when you wake up. So there is something to putting all that together.
Yeah, you're absolutely fantastic. So talk a little bit about, you haven't disappointed me at all.
Oh. Wow, yay! You can call my ex-husband up and tell him. I'm just teasing.
Talk about your website and how do you want people to find out more? And I'm sure by now a lot of people are going to be interested.
It's really simple. Probably the quickest way, either way, Secret to Everything is my business name. So you can go to secrettoeverything.com or KimberlyMcGeorge.com, whatever you can remember. And I'm all over social media. Really a good way to get in touch with me. I have a great YouTube channel. We interview beautiful guests, a lot of conscious people, just different things. You can check me out there. I'm on Twitter at Serene Wellness. I'm on Facebook. I have Secret to Everything, Kimberly McGeorge, Dr. Kimberly McGeorge, all over Facebook. I'm pretty hard not to get in contact with. if you know. So I'm on LinkedIn if you guys are business people. So, and you can write support at KimberlyMcGeorge.com if you have any questions, and we will answer you there. I also have a 1-800 number, 1-877-25-SECRET. If you want to call us and leave us a message or talk to us during business hours, we would be happy to help you.
Fantastic. Dr. Kim, you were just like absolutely fantastic. You are so easy to have a dialogue with and to connect with. And
you're so sweet. Thank you.
I can probably finish your sentences.
You're the first. Congratulations.
Whatever that means.
That's a big accomplishment.
Okay. So this was an awesome conscious hour. We call these proofs of conscious hour that time doesn't exist, because this does not feel like an hour, a regular, normal hour, what people would call in this reality. This is a conscious hour, which feels like very fast. It's at the end, and I'm so sorry. The only thing I'm sorry about is that we have to end it. But maybe you will be open to, well, not maybe, I think you said you were open to continuing with some really wild things to blow my mind and everybody else's. And I'm definitely signing up for that one.
Yeah, we can go through the looking glass next time, right? We'll do that.
So thank you so much, Dr. Kim, for being who you are. And
thank you.
You are definitely being someone for me as a conscious human being that's really on this journey that I'm on. And it doesn't really matter, you know, where you are and where I am. It makes no difference. We'll be on the same journey, and this will hopefully never end. That's what I'm hoping for. There's nowhere to get to. There's just getting better at it.
That's right. Amen.
Getting better.
Yep. I agree, my friend. Well, it was my pleasure to interact with your audience and be with you during this time. Thank you so much, and thank you for being that love frequency.
Thank you, and of course to our viewers, if we touched, moved, and inspired you, having Dr. Kim on the show tonight, keep going to our YouTube channel. We have thousands of shows up there, and the more you watch this show or any other shows, we have a top 10 list every month. If it makes it to the top 10, it has the possibility to go to public television. Thank you so much for watching. We'll be back next Tuesday on the network. Thank you so much. I love you, Dr. Kim, and I love you all, everybody. Have a great weekend. Go Broncos.